Our Lord demands blood, and we shall not fail to give it to him.
All right, that was short and sweet. And by blood, you mean ink, and by ink, I mean pixels, because we're going to be talking about all of the different ways that you could write lists. If anyone's like me, writing lists is the best part of Warhammer. Playing games is pretty okay. Painting's fine. Talking about it in front of a camera is pretty okay too. But the real joy in life comes from writing lists.
From scheming.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming up with some, as they say, fresh bullshit. How are you doing today, buddy?
I am very well, thank you, Ed. I have been painting more Vampire Counts models. You'll be pleased to hear the number of Blood Knights I now have is increasing. So we're up to 7 painted Blood Knights now. And I had a bit of a palette cleanser and painted 5 skeletons as well, just because I bought 60 and built 60, but only painted like 50. So I'm just painting the last 10 just so I haven't got any grey plastic. Because if I can get those last 3 Blood Knights and 5 or 6 more skeletons done, my pile of shame will be complete.
Yeah.
That's a hobby goal right there. Get your pile of shame done and out the door.
Ready. When you go on a YouTube channel, it's no longer a pile of shame, it becomes a pile of potential. That's
pile of potential. Sorry, I didn't realise I forgot I was a YouTuber for the moment there, Ed.
Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah. I played against 11 Blood Knights, I think, in one unit yesterday.
Oh, in one big unit.
Yeah. That's the way to do them. But it's it's good times. Good times.
How wide was the frontage?
I think only 7. Something like that. It's you've got to still move them around, which does get difficult. And the whole point of them is that not so much that you get super wide to get all the attacks in, because they have 2 attacks each, so it gets a little bit inefficient. But it's mostly there so you can res models back. You can never go below 1. If you always have at least 1, and you've got 2 models to res, you can get, I think, just back up to 9 models immediately, which is, incredibly disgusting.
Just so I'll have 500 points back, please. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you got any events coming up in the interim, in the near future?
Attending events, I am not got anything booked this side of Christmas.
Sure.
I'm keeping an eye on the TSN calendar for what they're going to put up in the new year. I haven't booked any yet, but that will be interesting. And obviously, I'm running my next event in February, so end of Feb is my first 2-day GT, which I'm very excited for. Tickets available now.
Yes, I will have one, please. You still owe me a free tournament ticket, which is not a fault of yours, to be clear to the viewers. It's just I haven't cashed that in. So, I'm cashing that in now. And I think I've said that already, but I'm cashing that in now. That's the goal. Perfect. Well, we have got some of the regulars in chat. Creekhammer is here. Andy as well. Hope you're both doing well. Matthew says that's a hobby nightmare. I'm assuming referring to the pile of potential.
Well, I think Christmas is coming, and I have asked Santa to bring me some models. So I think as of December 25th, the pile of potential will begin anew.
Hell yeah. What have you asked Santa for?
I have asked for some Black Knights and some Hex Wraiths. I would like to make... Well, I'd like to make a all-mounted Vampire Counts list. Mm-hmm. Running Vampire Counts rules, and I'd also quite like to give the Bretonian rules a try using Vampire Counts models. So I have my Black Knights can just be Knights of the Realm. My Hex Wraiths with their great axes can be Grail Knights, and then I've got Blood Knights that can be the Questing Knights.
And all of the good units apart from Pegasus.
Yes, won't have Pegasus, but I really like the. One of the AOS vampires, I forgot what they're called. They're like transforming into like winged monsters. Don't know what they're called. Chat, you can tell me what those types of vampires are called.
The Vargeists, Vargulfs,
yeah, they kind of look like that, but they're vampires, so they're kind of still growing. So they've got like almost like a dragon's body, and then
what you mean the character?
Yeah, one of the characters.
Right. Okay. So that would be like a character on Royal Pegasus. Is that what you?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think it will in Vampire Counts it will count as an Abyssal Terror.
Yeah.
And then in Bretonians it will be a Lord on Pegasus. And I think I can probably make a really cool like undead version of Bretonnians, which would be nice.
Super reasonable.
Mostly because I don't like running my Blood Knights in a flat line. I want to run them in a lance because it looks cooler. So I want to see what happens with that.
Fair, yeah. No, that's cool. It started to populate again. It's been pretty hectic over here, so I may or may not have forgotten to put keywords in the chat again. So we're starting to fill up now that the search terms are working correctly. Matthew says he's going to be the only person to ever come second at a Saffron Old World RTT. Did he come second at the first one as well?
He might have done as well, actually. So that's two.
Hell yeah.
Always the bridesmaid.
Well, twice second is fourth, right? So that's good. Orsa's here. Good to have you, Ors. Hope you're doing well. Existence as well. Good evening. Christian says good evening from Sweden. Hope you're doing well, Christian. Orc Boy Phil says discovered this channel a few days ago from the Honest Wargamer. Oh, hell yeah. I didn't realize I was getting plugged over there. Thank you very much to Rob and or Val, depending on who it was. Currently building dwarves. I might have made a mistake. Just like how determined are you to win with them? Because Richie keeps winning events. He won back-to-back GTs the last 2 weekends, so he's obviously playing them well. If you play them well, you can win events. Just play the game on hard mode. That's the answer there.
Get good.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying get good because Orc Boy Phil might be good already. I don't have a baseline for how good they are. If you're good already, Phil, stay good. If you're not, work on that. And then we've got the Winslow. Good to have you as well, Winslow. Andrew says you get frustrated list building when things won't fit. That's fair. So that's maybe something we should briefly touch on before we get into the video proper. Obviously, there is a rich and storied tradition of playing weird points levels in fantasy because a lot of people don't like that they can't have all of their toys. And by that, I mean, you might expect to see lists running 2,400 points or some other weird and wonderful. 2,400 works quite well because it's divisible by 4. So when you've got, 25% max rare, 50% max special, that just sort of works out nicely. But yeah, how do you feel about playing at 2,000 points and having to make actual cuts to get things in? Do you like that, or would you rather have more toys?
I don't mind it because ultimately I think when you start going to bigger points values, you're effectively trading time for toys, aren't you?
Sure.
So those, if we're looking at it from an event perspective, we're thinking, okay, 2,500 points, that's great, but it is 25% extra models on the board. And we know that it's not necessarily a linear time curve either. 25% extra models is a lot more decisions that need to be made over the course of a game. So suddenly, are we looking at needing 3.5 hour rounds to get through that? I'm actually finding that at 2k points, most games at my events are done in 2 hours 15. Some of them go the full 2 hours 45, but most of them are done 2 hours 15. So perhaps you could go up to 3 hours and just accept that some people aren't going to finish their games. But then do you want to be running an event where people are not finishing games, and especially those armies that do well later in the rounds, later in battle rounds, are going to get penalised for that. So I think more points is obviously good because you get toys in. I don't personally have an issue with it. I think obviously with the vampires, you get your guy and your Mortis engine, you can be pretty happy after that. So, and actually most of the units are in slots where I think you have got enough points. I'd love to run Blood Knights in special, but they're amazing, so probably shouldn't. So I think, yeah, for vampires anyway, it works out all right at 2,000, I think. Ed, you are on mute, sir, so
Thank you kindly. I was typing more keywords. Matthew says, not for tournaments, but I want to try a 3,000-point boozy Sunday game soon. That's fair. And also, Rob at Square Based is running a 3,000-point game event in January, I think it is, and it's 4 games instead of 5.
Yeah.
So 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, both days. Just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit less unwieldy. I haven't got a ticket for that, but if one comes available, I think I should, and just see what sort of fun shenanigans I can get up to. Callum's here as well. I build my armies with my hands and glue, not apps. Shut up, Callum.
Thinks he's funny.
For anyone who hasn't seen, over on Squarebase, they have announced that they are going to be looking to run an international event coming summer 2025, so fairly soon actually, and it's probably going to be in Nottingham based on the fact that Rob is in Nottingham and he's got resources here. There will be an announcement from Team England coming on Saturday at 1 p.m. on this channel, so keep tuned for that. There'll be more, and the reason I'm bringing that up is Callum put together a Team Scotland and come and fight me. Put your money where your mouth is, and I'm going to smash you.
Starting some international beef already, are we, Ed?
No. The Scots have been needling me for at least like 2 weeks. So this is, fair turnabout. If we look at the totality of tension between Scotland and England, it can all be summed up in the last 2 weeks, where Pash and Callum have been vaguely needling me and me personally.
I think there's some people in the 15th century that would disagree with you there, Ed.
They're dead. They don't matter. So
they're buried under
before I cause an international event by accident. My gutter run a cloud at 3k would blot out the sun. That's fair. I think it would still be a bad list, but maybe there's some scope to it in a Teams format where you've got limited.
I was about to say, I mean, I think obviously with the Teams format, you suddenly start opening up lots of different options which aren't good in singles. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to seeing what that can bring forward.
Yeah, something for teams, and I don't know what format Rob's going to go with. Although that said, he has run a team event before in the old world, and you weren't allowed to have duplicate armies, which is very standard. But you also weren't allowed to have duplicate items, so you weren't allowed to go. Here is a law familiar across 2 armies. That's really limiting, and it opens up some really fun design space and it makes list building fun. Now, if you want your list building to be fun, you might want to think about using one of the different resources that we've got available here. So, sidetracked, unfortunately, that rat bastard very generously donates. Recently got my table turn boozy home hammer time. Fantastic. Enjoy. I hope you have a great game. So, with that almost super smooth seg, let's go into...
Yeah. You absolutely nailed that there.
And then it was so good up until I saw someone being very generous. I was like, I can't not say anything about it.
Yes. So, team, welcome to my little review of army building apps. So, I have spent actual money to test out a number of different army builders that we have available to us across the internet and beyond. So, I can bring you all a purely factual, this is factual, I'm laying that out first, factual assessment of each army builder. There is no opinion here. This is all pure objective.
No. There is opinion here. I will be chipping in with my opinion loudly. But please go on.
No, obviously, yes. Disclaimer, this is purely opinion. I have no skin in the game, any of these apps. So if you take personal offence to anything that I'm saying, please do write to Rob and Val at the Squarebase Show. But if you agree, do what the rat bastard has done and send us some super chats, because that would be really cool.
To
Tell us
fund
how much cooler we are.
Yeah, well, depending on whether I get made redundant, that might be the fuel to keep me going.
We need it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through 6 different army building systems that we have available to us in the old world. And I think that's already a number that people probably be like, oh, hang on a minute, there's that many, because you only hear about 1 or 2 in the online discourse currently. And I think when we are thinking about army builders, I think there's a couple of different aspects we can look at these from. Obviously, we can think about them in how good they are for actually building lists in the first place. I've put Old World Builder in the middle, WoW to D, just because Ed wouldn't accept it in any other way.
I had no
even
input.
Though I actually, spoiler alert, don't think it's the best one. So
I've had no input in putting this together. I'm just going to put this out there, and I need to say that because I have developed a working relationship and maybe even verging into a friendship with someone who works on New Recruit, the Old World level up. So I'm not going to let that bias any opinions that I might have.
Good, getting it out there. But yeah, so I think we need to think about these apps from how good they are from a list building perspective, i.e. actually putting units into blocks and actually adding them in. And then with our modern technology, how good these apps are for viewing rules, sharing with other people, and general sort of in-game use. So I think there's two different aspects we can look at these apps from. So from a first perspective, in terms of basic requirements, Ed, do you think an app should have for actual list building? What should it do?
Well, I mean, going to start with the basics. It should allow you to put your list together. So what I mean by that is you've got to have all of the options. You've got to have the ability to make lists, name lists, duplicate list. If your app builder cannot duplicate a list, I don't want to see it. I have so many version 1.13s, version 1.14s that in my, and I have to clear them out because I fill up my army builder so quickly. But like, you have to have just the competent basics. You've got to be able to put everything in. Everything has to be pointed correctly. You need to have the names, and really you should have, in my opinion, the ability to view the rules when you click it. Here's the thing. I understand that can be a little bit of legal hot water if you are meddling with Games Workshop. Coming from 40k, BattleScribe has got around by saying, we don't put the rules in. We're just an app that people can put data sets into. And it's not our fault if someone puts a data set that contains your IP in. Yeah. But we haven't really had any issues with that yet in the old world. So fingers crossed it stays that way.
Not yet, because I think obviously they're conspicuous by their absence is any Games Workshop-led app builder. They don't have an official app builder like they do for 40k or Sigmar. I'm assuming Sigmar's got one, but 40k have their own one. And for anyone that's tried to use BattleScribe for 40k recently will notice that it is disappearing rapidly from any kind of modern updated rules. So
because the BattleScribe app developer has stopped supporting it at all until people stop giving him money. Then he turns up, makes a few grand gestures, and then disappears again. So, gonna start off now. Fuck BattleScribe. All my homies hate BattleScribe. Do not give that man any of your money. It is not worth the time.
Yeah, I won't lie to people with more share. I'm just going to, we're not even going to see any of this stuff. Yeah, I have described the dev of the BattleScribe as a bit of a willy, which is slightly nicer way than you put it, Ed, but there we are. Yeah. So exactly as you say, make these apps need to be easy to add and modify units, doesn't it? You need to be able to duplicate information in there because we're often putting, when you're Ed, you're taking 3 of the best, and getting the rules correct, things like that. Obviously, interesting to add in the idea that you can see rules as you're building. I think that is really, really useful. Stops you having to reference back to other apps or books and things like that. It's all in one place there, isn't it? What I quite like as well is I like the apps that give you warnings if you've done something illegal, because I do it all the time.
Yes.
I put too many points into something or not enough points into something else, or I give my Necromancer too many upgrades, that sort of thing. So I like those that flash up the little red triangle or whatever, exclamation mark, to say, oh, you can't do that, you've got too many points, or not enough points here. So I think that's a useful feature that them have. And what I quite like as well for those lore-focused gamers out there, I like being able to rename my units and adding notes under each unit to describe their glorious conquests in the old world. I appreciate that's probably not a basic feature, but I do like
which is
that.
A little bit of a false flag for you specifically, because normally you look at that, you're like, oh, sound, this game's going to be easy. But Lewis is actually pretty reasonable at the game. So normally you see it and you're like, oh, great, this is a good pairing. And you just get bamboozled because then Lewis is also...
He's named his heroes, and all of his skeleton units have got individual names.
Yeah. This is going to be easy. Ah! God, I'm dead!
Whoa, they're in my deployment zone turn 2. So yeah, I think that's when you're building a list. There, I think we've covered most of the basics there. When you're thinking, Ed, about what you want from an app that has in-game viewing, sharing, or in-game requirements, that sort of thing, what sort of things are you now looking for in the old world?
Well, so just to shout out, there've been a couple of great suggestions in chat. The ability to share like a competent output as more Robot Wars content says, that's really important. It's got to be readable because, let's be honest, a lot of the point in this is writing a list so you can go, this is what I'm playing. Look. Or, it's in a tournament system so you can see. Matthew does point out that if it can handle Motley Crue, then it's probably doing well because obviously there's lots of different equipment there. But it just means that it's probably built fundamentally well from the ground up and it'll be able to respond well. And then also Sean says in chat, new recruits been good at dealing with errors, but how quickly the data set is updated, how quickly errors are fixed. Those are big things.
Exactly, how quickly new rules go in as well when Games Workshop release them. That's really good. And yeah, the text output I think is really useful. I think from a TO's perspective, and they're a lot better now than they used to be. But bloody hell, there was some 40k ones, some 40k apps a few years ago, which if you copied them into BCP, you would just get a wall of unreadable text where you just could not work out what the hell anyone had in their army. So a list export format that should cut it right down to the basics. I think is really good. Anything else you'd add to that, Ed?
I think those are the basics there. But yeah, have you got anything that you're particularly finding noteworthy?
So I think coming back to what we were saying about the looking at rules and stuff during building, what I quite like is the apps where you can just click on the unit in the middle of a game and it tells you all of its rules and what those rules actually are and what they actually mean. Again, you've got the difficulties with IP, but actually I think any app that can do that is really useful. Jacko in the chat, BCP stands for Best Coast Pairings, which is in the UK at least is the most commonly used, I would say, tournament format app. Yeah. So when you go into an event, it'll have your pairings on it. You input your scores into it, and then when we're talking about our ranking system, the new Old World ranking system, it scrapes data from BCP, which is positioned in tournaments. And from my perspective as a tournament organizer, it's the app I use to organize events by, and it is shit, but it is what we use, and that's what we're stuck with. So there
it is crap, isn't it? It's funny. Winslow says, love when you export a list and it's suddenly in High Gothic. Wrong game, buddy. Elvish runes is what we say here. I love it when you export a list and suddenly it's in Elvish runes. But shall we, without any further ado, get into the first of the list builders that you've got available for us?
Let's do it. Right, so I'm going to go straight in. New recruit. Here we are. So, new recruit, £2 a month. So actually, in all of the list builders we're going to review, it is the most expensive because it's a monthly fee, so you're just going to be paying that forever. Now, it does have a free version, which does have fewer features. So you're effectively, from my review perspective, I'm assuming we've got full access to all the features, which means we are paying for the service. Now, you say this is the one that you use, Ed, when you're putting this together? Or
I use two. I use this and I use Old World Builder, and I like both of them for different reasons.
Yeah. I think from a positive perspective, New Recruit, when I was using it, it's the best at checking your army composition. It flags up anything that you've done wrong. So I think it's very good at doing that and making sure that your list is as accurate as it can possibly be. And I see New Recruit being used a lot for online play because I think it links directly to Warhol, doesn't it? So you can export straight from New Recruit to Warhol, which is a kind of a great cross compatibility there to save you having to try and copy stuff out, which is really good.
And it's also a tournament format. So you can host tournaments on New Recruit. Now, it's not necessarily the fault of New Recruit for this, but the SBot that I've been helping run the pods on is I think we've just not necessarily used its features well, but I am annoyed that there doesn't seem to be any way to do random in bracket pairings. It's just full random or number one plays versus number two, number three plays number four, which doesn't gel super well with me. But I haven't brought this to the developers, so I can't really complain that they haven't fixed the things that I want them to fix.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the only criticisms I'd have of it is that on mobile, it feels quite clunky to use.
Yes.
The user interface feels like it was put together in the 90s and hasn't necessarily been updated since. There's just so many drop downs and bits going all over the place. I think on desktop, it's a bit better. I still think the others are better. I think Old World, if you do go on a desktop, Old World Builder is better. But from a phone perspective, which is how I build most of my lists on my phone, I think it's the most difficult to use. And actually, you can see a little image. It's not, if you're looking on YouTube, you're not going to be able to see it very clearly, but there's just so much text and information coming at you from level one, which is not particularly helpful. I think it feels quite complicated to use, even though the process actually putting a list together is relatively straightforward. It's just visually, it just looks a bit off, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's kind of got that sort of old school Reddit vibe where when you're used to it, it's a very efficient way of consuming information. Yeah. But it's just a lot. And until you get to the point where you're parsing it really quickly, it's kind of over the top, I would say. I do like it more on desktop than I like it on mobile. I don't really use it on mobile, but I do use it quite a lot when I'm at my PC.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Sorry, what are the features that you get for being paid? Because I'm not actually sure what they are, and maybe I should start giving them money.
I'm going to look them up. Bear with me.
Hell yeah.
There is a list on their website of the things that you get for new recruit. Bear with me. So I want to get this right.
Yeah. So what I'll do is, while you're looking that up, is I'll just say the Warhol integration, which is probably the best part of it. Warhol being a great platform. I'm, I guess, semi-sponsored by Warhol in that I do get free sub on there. So take that as you will. I really like it. I think it's the best way to play online. I think it's a lot less clunky than having played a lot of TTS, Tabletop Simulator. I think that's terrible. I haven't specifically played it with Old World, but I can't imagine it would be good. Warhol just has a lot of functionality built in that makes it very smooth for playing rank and flank games. So, and then obviously you can run events through New Recruit, have them linked to Warhol, all that good stuff. So these are, then that's just a free thing that they have.
I can't find the list easily. I'll have to look it up and come back to everybody. But stuff, it just says cool extra features. I can't see what they are.
Excellent stuff.
I think it's basically you allow it gives you the ability to name stuff. It adds rules. I think like searchable.
So I found the list. I'll just tell you. So the things that you get if you support is you get custom names. You can save units as favorites. So if you know that you're going to be putting, so for example, my Dark Elf lists, I always run the same core, which is 3 units of 8 Dark Riders, all of them with scouts and musicians and repeater crossbows. 2 of them have scout and fire and flee. I could just favorite that, and then 3 clicks, I've got my core put in every time. That's nice and easy.
Really useful,
yeah, miniature matching, so you can put your collection into the app. That's actually a cool feature that I've wanted for other games. It's not really how I build Warhammer lists, but for like MTG, just going, oh, what can I build out of these cards? If you've got an expansive collection, especially if you're someone who collects one army, so you're like Richie, you play dwarves, you've got let's say 10,000 points of dwarves. You're like, oh, can I build this list with what I have, like just to hand? Yeah, great, that's amazing. You get rule search, you get custom view, so you can reorganize things in custom order into custom categories. I guess that's more for like the fluff perspective. If you want to be like, here's a detachment of such and such under, if you're playing Empire, you're like, oh, these are under Grand Marshal Steve. And then you also get Discord status, because what's the point of giving someone money if they don't give you fancy badges on Discord? That's the important stuff there.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, the main one, I think, when we're thinking about our basic requirements from the things we talked about at the start of this, not having access to the rules when you're building lists, I think is a negative. But ultimately, I mean, £2 a month, if you're not talking, if a Games Workshop bring an app out, it's going to be £4 a month. So
no, $5.99 minimum, I think. Like how much I think is the 40k app tied into Warhammer Plus subscription. I think that's how they do it.
It may be nowadays. I don't subscribe because I'm a TO, so I get access to the rules.
I also have access to them, but I'm not a TO. Moving on. So yeah, it'll be expensive if Games Workshop do it, and £2 a month if you want to pay. And the base functionality is fantastic. I've never paid for New Recruit, and everything I've wanted is on there.
Yeah,
but for £2 a month, getting like a bit more and supporting a developer that you use the platform for, always a good start if you want to go with.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there's a lot of these that come through. I mean, obviously you can do all of your list building completely for free, but then people are putting a lot of time and effort into putting these systems together. So I personally, the app that I use is a paid app. It's not a monthly one, but you just pay once up front. I don't necessarily have a problem with paying for these, Ed. By the sounds of it, you don't either. So I think if devs are asking for a bit of support for what they're doing, I think
but keep in mind we are in a privileged position to be in a country that has quite a strong currency and rate of pay in terms of, obviously, like, don't get me wrong, I'm feeling the pinch at the moment, especially with work making cuts, but £2 for me is pocket change. Some other countries where the exchange rate is gonna cost a lot. It's more of a consideration for those people.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Okay.
Let's move on. What we got next?
Let's do it. Quartermaster up next. Just a one-time fee, £7.99. Straight off the bat. I think where Quartermaster shines, it's printable unit cards and roster sheets. Its output, its visual output of units is so much ahead of everybody else's. I think and this is an example of just Alicia von Carstein as my vampire on dragon, but the way it prints everything, and then obviously for those people that like to look at their rules on paper during the game, this prints it out in a really readable way. I always see people at my events that have got almost like handwritten versions of all of their unit profiles, so what their movement is, the weapon skill, strength, all that sort of stuff, all their rules underneath, whereas this actually just allows you to print it in a PDF form. You can resize all of the individual cards and then just print it how you want it. So I think this is where Quartermaster really, really shines. And actually, when you're building apps and putting things together, I think out of all of the ones we're going to look at, I think this is the one that looks the most professional. And I think actually, fundamentally, this Quartermaster, they've been doing app building for, well, since I started playing Warhammer, so 10, 15 years ago, they had an app builder available. They were one of the first, I think, in the market. So they've had a long time to refine their user interface, say, when we compare it to new recruits.
So does this also cover other games? Is this something that you
can
use?
Yeah, so that $7.99 covers any war game you want, basically. I think it's got near enough all of them in there.
Obviously, that's something that New Recruit does as well. You can make, various different, whichever games they support, you can do on there. But it's good to know, because $7.99, again, from my perspective, not a huge upfront cost. If I don't think I'm going to use it, I'm not going to pay that. But if I was interested in playing AOS and 40k, and I was like, oh, well, really, that's like $250 and some change. That's all it is. So, that makes it a lot easier to stomach at a slightly higher price point to jump in.
Definitely. And effectively with these unit cards as well, and I've seen, there's one person I know that's done this, you can effectively print yourself an arcane journal because it's just got everything in there in terms of the actual unit profiles. You can just basically just put them all to the list and print it out, and then you've got a whole arcane journal for $7.99. Just printed out in front of you. The downside that it does have, and I'm not suggesting anyone should do that, obviously, if Games Workshop come knocking. The only downside,
they're not providing the rules.
Exactly. It does not provide any rules. So you can't, on this screen, you can't click on where it says Necromantic Undead and it tells you what that rule is. It does not do that in game for you. So it's there as unit cards, as profiles, but you still need to then look up the rules, special rules from the rulebook and things like that. So I think that's where this one falls down. It doesn't really have any in-game functionality beyond the fact that the cards look pretty.
I think as well, having your stats there is all well and good, but if you don't have your attack stats, you don't have what Wicked Claws mean. Yeah, I think that's a bit of a flaw.
Can be a challenge, yeah, definitely. It does, so it's quite good. If you look at the vampire count in this example, you can see toughness 6, tough and wounds 8. So it's actually added the fact that the mount has altered the base stats of the vampire. Yeah. So that's cool. But yeah, I think I like Quartermaster, but I think it feels a bit stuck in the past. If this was an app that was made 10 years ago, I think it would be market leading. I think nowadays other features have overtaken it ever so slightly. But we'll move on to second in command. Disclaimer, this is the one I use, so I am going to be biased about this one because this is my favourite. So it's still relatively new in the market, probably going 6-7 months now. And it's the one that I don't think many people have heard of. It is £2.99, but that's just a one-off fee, so you're not paying that every single month. List building, it's got all those basic features that we've talked about. The actual, so it's got, you can search rules while you're building your list, which is really useful. It has those in game as well. In the text up here, you can click on all the blue text and it just takes you straight to what Dark Vitality means or what level 4 wizard means. So that's really useful. It's actually got a searchable rulebook in it as well. I am a certified app hipster. I think anyone's called me a hipster before, right? I have spent some time in London, though, so that might well be in my favour.
It's rubbed off.
So it does have searchable rules. So in-game, you can just search the rulebook and it's all in there. Miscast tables, weapon skill tables, all that sort of stuff. It's all really good in there. buying the app does give you, same as New Recruit, does give you access to their Discord, which is always very useful because, and this is what you've said about New Recruit in terms of the developer talking to you, there's a questions section in their Discord where you can literally ask the developer to add a feature or change something, or if there's any issues, you stick it in there and they normally reply within half hour, 45 minutes and get it changed, pushed through on an update. So I quite like that back and forth with the dev, and you can actually see what other people are saying and stuff like that. So
yeah, Nisgard had a great suggestion earlier, which is to put on New Recruit different, like the faction magic items in a different color to the base magic items. Yeah. So I have already pinged Tito Man on Discord and be like, hey bud, you I don't know if that's within his functionality or if you'd have to go to whoever it is that actually builds New Recruit, but yeah, I've put that into the world, so if that happens, you have Nisgard to thank for it.
Excellent. Brilliant. So yeah, I think in the overall kind of looking at how easy to use it is, how it works in game, I think this is, in my opinion, I think this is the best in the market that we can get access to. I think this is better than the others. And now I'm probably going to be asking the dev to add in the in-game victory point counter, which we know is for those people that like to use Old World Builder is a really useful feature. I think for those people that use Old World Builder, I think that's one reason why they stick coming back to it. So I think if this adds that in, I think there are a lot of advantages to using this that Old World Builder doesn't have. So I think this will be the best in the market very soon, I reckon. So how much, Ed, when you're thinking about these, how much do you value being able to speak to the dev directly?
Very low down.
You don't mind. You're not that bothered if there's issues.
I mean, like it's. I'm in a slightly odd position where, because I have a YouTube channel, I could probably shoot any of the app developers a message, and I'm more likely than not to get a response. And that's just by dint of having some vague recognizability. So that's not something I think I can put real value to, because I feel like if I had an issue, I could probably just message any of them. I might not get things fixed. Like, that might not be, but I could probably at least message them.
Yeah. No, fair enough. Cool. Shall we move on then? This one isn't an app. Next up. Knowing the score in game suggests bad character.
Well, truly, I am a fuck then. The worst of all.
Cool. Here we go, team. Clearly the best system out there. Pen and paper, completely free once you bought the pen and the paper, or pencil. Use a pencil for fuck's sake if you're doing these. I like using pen and paper. I don't know about anybody else. It's usually my first attempt. I'll have a book in front of me and I'll be writing stuff down. I'll be scribbling ideas down. I like doing that physically rather than on a screen. Spend enough time looking at screens as it is. But clearly with pen and paper, I always get points wrong if I add a model in and then I miscalculate things, all sorts of that. And you'll be surprised here, unfortunately, Ed, pen and paper, very few in-game features on pen and paper.
Weird that.
It doesn't link to rules or anything. I press it as many times as I want and it doesn't link anywhere.
There we go. Jacka did suggest this earlier on. He also said Excel. I'm more of an Excel guy. If I don't have any way to use any other army builder, Excel is fine. It's fine, and that's the best I can say for it. But obviously I am in a position where I sometimes get to see rules ahead of them being released, which means that often I'm writing lists well before points are put into any sort of builder. So sometimes you just got to do it. You just got to put rules like points into Excel and live with the consequences.
So maybe we'll edit this to pen and paper and Excel then for you computer nerds.
For those of you who live in the 21st century.
More Robot Wars content, you have to submit a paper list. I'm assuming you can print a list.
I would assume so, but that is...
handwrite it. I mean, I guess from an event perspective, I don't know you'd ever trust anyone that was using a pen and paper list, would you?
So Warhammer World, back in 8th edition 40k, you used to have to bring a copy of your list for every opponent, because the way they did pairings was they didn't use an app or anything. They just took, like, it went up on a TV screen, and you're like, oh, that's my name. I'm on table 37, which is hilariously low tech for 2018, 2019, whenever this was. I believe they have modernized now and they do use BCP.
Yes, I think they do. Yeah, for sure. I remember as well, you had to write your army list in a form. It looked like an online form that had been printed out. And you had
Yeah.
boxes where you had to write everything in, and you had to write it by hand. And as you say, you had to write 5 copies of it. So you had to write the same thing out 5 times out or photocopy it.
Wait, why did you have to write it by hand?
Don't know. You
Bizarre.
print. It was not like a form fillable one. I mean, maybe you could have made your own, but they gave it had the Warhammer logo on everything. You had to print it out and write your list on it. But yeah, that was a long time ago. I was probably 12.
Oh, well, in that case, yeah,
15,
fair. That was
16.
before technology existed.
Oh, behave! Come on. I did have hair back then.
Not a joke that I'd make, but you're allowed to make about yourself.
No, there's a question coming up in the Discord when we get to it that is about models' hair, and
that feels targeted. Do I have to dole out some timeouts?
Right, let's go on to the last one, shall we? This is mad. Oh no, it's not the old one. It's not the last one. Sorry, Old World Builder. One more after this. You're almost through, Tim. We're almost through.
This is the meat of the content. Don't act like people are rushing to get through this. This is why people are here. They want to hear about the various options.
Well, I've talked about the best one now. I don't know why anyone's even interested in the rest. You should just use second in command. So I like Old World Builder because of the victory point counter. But
I've just seen what you've got in the text box.
And it lets you add notes. So you can shout abuse at your opponents when he runs his Demogryph Knights.
Very good.
You would never run Demogryph Knights with a Preceptor anyway, would you? They just get challenged out.
Yeah, unless I was also putting characters in there. But for anyone who's missed it, there's the you fuck. Anyway, please continue.
But yes, so I like the victory point counter. There was a comment further. Ian in the chat says that actually New Recruit has added that in as well, so you can just calculate victory points as you're going along. Oh,
it was not playing ball.
It didn't want to play ball.
EveMux is for if anyone's wanting a tier list of different streaming software, EveMux is quickly falling out of my favorites because it is fucking with me. On my screen, I am not in the box. I can't see myself. Things I'm having tech issue after tech issue. It's all right. It only cost me like 18 quid a month. Anyway, please continue.
Yes, victory point counter, very useful. But Jesus Christ, Ed, let me save my armies to an account, because I'm going to tell you now the pain of firing up the Old World Builder on my phone one day and finding that all of the lists I had built have just disappeared.
Why did you clear your cache?
I don't know. It's got an iPhone. I have all of the ad blocker and all that sort of stuff built.
No. Did you delete your history at some point?
No.
What were you searching?
Oh, maybe
because that's why it would have disappeared. You've deleted your history. You've deleted your cache.
It was all the lizard man porn I was looking at.
Your cache and your cookies, all the saved data is gone, and that's why your lists will disappear on Old World Builder. If you don't do that, they will stay there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'll remember that for the future. No, I installed what's it called?
Hot slan on slan action.
Oh yeah, baby! SkinCon slan action. You get like 10 to a slan.
That feels illegal. Let's move
on. But yes, it's free. It has everything you need. Or maybe it was a desktop one where Warhammer deletes my cat.
It's very good. It's very good.
The chat is on fire tonight. You should all be on this show. I don't know why we're even here. You should all just talk to each other. Nis says I was Googling demonettes, which was 100% true. I do like some of that Slanesh action as well. Lots of tentacles.
I really like those old Jez Goodwin demonettes. Not from the sexual point of view, but they just feel like alien enough.
Yes.
That it kind of yeah. Although I do like the new ones as well, which are more sort of slightly body horror. Demons are great.
Yeah.
I might have to do some demons. Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, great that it's free. Obviously, this is probably, if you're looking for features and you're looking for free features, this is going to be the best, isn't it? Because all the other ones you have to pay for. New Recruit, obviously, maybe not, depending on how far you want with the rules. It does give you warnings on points when you're building your list, but it doesn't seem to warn me, at least, on numbers of units. So I could put like 12 units of Blood Knights in if I wanted to. Obviously, the points wouldn't work, but it would warn me on points. It wouldn't warn me on number of units. So I think there's slight potential for making slightly legal lists. But it probably is, I would have thought, probably the most popular builder out there. Do you think?
I would assume maybe New Recruit, because I think New Recruit was established beforehand and has an established scene, and it has the tie into Warhol, and then the big online tournaments use it, like SBot, shout out SBot 2, that is going much better than I thought it might do, given the hurdles we've had to deal with. And SBot 3 is going to be fucking amazing. Just wait for it.
No, you're doing a great job. Yeah, wow to D in the chat has said he likes Old World Builder and its UI, but they improved the validation. Yeah, there's issues with building dodgy lists, I think, in there. So.
Old World Builder is my favourite, but it lacks some features, which means that I end up using New Recruit about as much. That's how I look at them.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, right, now we're definitely on to the last one. Here we go. BattleScribe, baby. You'll note my cheeky desert clip art there. If it had old world data in it, which it doesn't currently do, for the reasons we talked about previously about the dev, by the sounds of it, being a bit of a willy, it could be a great contender because it's free and it probably has most of the features that we want in an army builder. Everybody knows how to use it. Most of its list outputs are quite easy to follow and understand, unless people put the bloody thing where they get all the rules printed at the same time. That's a nightmare to look at. But obviously it doesn't really have the in-game features. So other apps have moved on since then. And obviously there's lots of drama around the dev and the data people. So probably not something that we want to be supporting in its current form.
Yeah, and it's an app that you really want to pay to use. The function, it has like inbuilt ads if you don't, and fuck that, basically. So when I was using BattleScribe for 40k, I used it for a long time, and I liked using it, and you get very used to the formatting, and it's quite quick, and there's a lot of great tools. It's very New Recruit-like in that it's a lot of information, and it's very overwhelming to start with.
Yeah.
But if you get used to it, it's quite good. If you're then taking that very streamlined program and you're just crowbarring ads in the middle of it, no, absolutely not. And also, don't give money to him.
No,
yeah, 100%. If the guy's not actively supporting it, so that the thing is basically the problem is it's breaking and functionality is disappearing, and new functionality is not being added. There is no support for the people who are doing the unpaid work of putting the data sets in. Do not give money to this grifter.
Yes. Good. And on that, you'll be pleased to hear I've put it last in the objective ranking of Old World Builder apps. As I said before, I think Second in Command is the best one. And if we can get the dev to add the victory point counter, I think it has all of the features that the other have. It has a better UI than New Recruit. It's more reliable in terms of not clearing your pawn off and losing access to all of your lists.
Use incognito like a human being, for God's sakes.
Which I think, obviously... You then, I think between Old World Builder and Second in Command, they're basically the same at that point. Obviously, you then pay for Second in Command, but I like having the access to the dev, which I don't have with Old World Builder. So that's why I've probably popped it up into first. New Recruit, I think, still gets podium spot. I just hate the UI. And obviously, with the price, you get that really strong set of features. But if you just get it free, you don't get access to the rules. So I think that just knocks it down into the others, because the other two you get for much cheaper or for free. You get access to all the rules, and I think that's really great for when you're playing in game. I think Quartermaster looks the most professional out of all of them, but it just doesn't have the features of a modern developer, modern app builder. Sorry, but it does have access to obviously lots of game systems, which the others, New Recruit does, but Older Builder and Second Command don't. Pen and paper beating BattleScribe into fifth place there, because writing it down and getting it wrong on a pen and paper is better than supporting that app.
I love how this is not actually, it's turned out this is not a reason to, like, this is not to rate different army builders. This is literally just to shit on BattleScribe. So my rankings, I'd put Old World Builder and New Recruit at number 1, tied, 1A, 1B. I like both of them more for some different reasons. They both have slightly different functionality or use cases. New Recruit obviously taking things like just being saved to an account, so I can do it on my phone.
Yeah.
Uploads it onto my PC, or like I can access it on my PC, I should say.
Yeah.
But then I'd probably put Quartermaster and Second Command at tied third. I haven't used either of them, so I can't comment. Pen and Paper at 5th, and then BattleScribe is, the aforementioned 6th. We've, yeah.
I think probably in terms of features, if BattleScribe had the old world data ready to load into it, and we didn't have those kind of issues with the individuals, it probably beats Quartermaster into 4th.
Yeah.
I don't think even with all of the features working in BattleScribe, I still don't think it's better than Second in Command, Old World Builder, or New Recruit. So
yeah,
it could beat Pen and Paper, but I think that might be just about it.
Ian's point about sharing rosters, absolutely true. I had forgotten how much of a pain it was to transfer a roster file from A to B. And also lists on BattleScribe took long enough to build that you're like, it's worth me trying to put this so I can just transfer it instead of having to. That's the best thing about Old World Builder. It feels very smooth to put an army list together. Yes, It doesn't transfer between. I don't even really care, because I can knock it out in like 2 minutes and just be like, click, 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 click. And maybe that's slightly something to do with you have less clicks to put an army together in Old World than maybe you might do in like 9th edition 40k.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's solid. Anything else on this subject before we move on?
No, I think that's it. I think that hopefully that was a good insight into the different options. For those of you who haven't used some of the others, that have just used one, there's a whole world of app builders out there, depending what you're after. As I say, I've paid for most of them now. And there's a world in which, so for the TSN events, I had built the list in Second in Command. I had then effectively transferred it onto Quartermaster so that I could print the unit cards out in the form that I wanted. Then it also had a version of Old World Builder, so I could use the victory point counter. And as I say, I really don't like New Recruit, so it's there as a begrudging third, I'm afraid.
That's super reasonable. So we've done the main topic of discussion, but don't go away because there's still more. But before we get to that, I would just like to say thank you, everyone, for the support. As always, this stream and everything I do is brought to you by you, the viewers, and the support that I receive from the members, especially those of you who are the Grail Knight tier supporters. So special shout out goes to Mechanite, Krieghammer, Ginger Steve, and Cameron's Battle Reports. Really big thanks. If you want to support but don't want to become a member, super reasonable. Liking, commenting, sharing of the videos, all of that good stuff always does help as well. And the channel's been going from strength to strength, so really appreciate that. Now, if you are a member of Longbeard or above, you are able to ask questions in the members VIP section. There is a close order podcast question section, and we do have some questions in the chat. One of which, as you mentioned, is slightly insulting to you, although probably not deliberately. I feel like Callum's more likely to send shots at me than he is to send at you.
I'm taking it as a deliberate attack.
That's fair. That's fair. We're back to racial tension between the English and the Scots. Good stuff. So Andrew says, are you covering the classic army builder by Lone Wolf Studios? I didn't even know it existed.
No.
So
What
no is
one?
the answer. I don't have thoughts on that, but maybe if we do a redux down the line, that'll have to come in. Or maybe that can be homework. We can look at it and towards the end of the next podcast, just give our thoughts on it if it's worth having a look at.
Army builder Lone Wolf. Oh, Lone Wolf Development.
Yeah.
Sorry, my apologies.
It's all right.
30 quid. Bloody hell, okay, that's quite a lot. I don't know.
Okay, so the answer is no. We're not looking at that one. Absolutely not. So we have got some podcast questions, and let's get into those. First of all, Winslow, thank you as always, Winslow, for leaving comments. Do appreciate those. Winslow's been the first to jump in and put some podcast questions in, so I appreciate those. He says, thoughts on spells with multiple casting values. It can be a little confusing to track, especially with remains and play spells, but I'd love if more non-persistent spells had it. Could work well alongside whatever fix, if any, is used to make level 2 casters more playable. I really like that sort of sliding scale where you're like, oh, I get a benefit, but if I roll well, I get a bigger benefit. That's a level of consistency I really enjoy.
100%. I agree with that as well. I think so. The vampires have got a really good example with Hellish Vigor, in that you cast it on a 10+, you get it everything in command range, and if you only need to cast it on I think it's a 6 or a 7 to get it for just one unit.
Yeah.
So I think that's really useful. I think what I would prefer is that if they're going to update existing spells, I would prefer them to make the base cast lower rather than adding in a high level, because I think if you just add a higher level to existing spells, all you do is encourage level 4s again, because the only people who are going to get to those high levels are level 4. So actually,
I think you can go both ways, right? So let's
well,
say,
yes, but I think
let's say Fireball costs 9 mana, for example. If we're pulling that out, we go, okay, cool. So we go for a lower level that is cast on a 7. But that's like 1d6 hits at strength 4. And then you've got one that goes off on a 10 or an 11. Great. That's 2d6 plus 2 or something like that. You really get the value of like 1d6 plus 1, 2d6 plus 2.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Something like that. I think, because I think if you're going to encourage those lower level wizards, which lots of people seem to want to see, or a more spread type of wizard, you probably need to make some of those spells easy to cast. Yeah, 100%. Just see the variety, really, rather than, oh, it's a level 4, is it? Yeah, great, cool. So I think that would be useful.
Yeah, that's super reasonable. I think I would... Yeah, I think this is more likely to come at a 2.0 instead of coming in any sort of fix that comes down the line, because it feels like a fairly significant rewrite of the Magic section. But yeah, I'd like to see it, and maybe it's something we could see in a supplement, a Magic supplement. Obviously, we are getting to, what are we, 2/3 of the way through the core factions in terms of the Arcane Journals coming out.
Yeah.
There's 4 left. After those 4, well, they're not going to stop printing books, because that's where the money comes in. So a cool one would be some sort of Laws of Magic supplement, because I'm sure they're going to do campaign style or more Arcane Journal, something along those lines. Yeah, so like a Winds of Magic style book, which either completely rewrites the base laws. I think that would be cool. That'd be fine. I'd like that. Or just adds additional laws, or as a seasonal thing. So it's like, for the next 6 months or the next year, we are in the realm of X, and that is Magic focused. And there are these new laws that you can only use in this match play book, which translates to everyone just plays this way for the next year, or if they really like it, they just continue to play it, because screw what Games Workshop do.
Definitely. Great shout from More Robot Wars in the chat. It'd be fun if all wizards cast spells exactly the same, but the level of wizard just made the spell better. For example, a fireball would be cast, but then the actual fireball will go off at d6 plus the level of the wizard.
Yeah,
which I quite like.
Yeah, so that's again a rewrite of the Magic system, which I haven't really thought about much, but I'm not opposed to. I like how it works, but we'll see. Anthony, good to have you, Anthony. I saw you said earlier you like it when we have earlier streams. Just was in mid-flow when you put it in there. Hope they put additional rules on Legacy armies. I don't think they will, but I think 2.0, I'm hoping, will come sooner than people might expect. I think it's going to come sooner than the initial 3-year cycle that you'd expect from a Games Workshop game. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see, because the legacy armies are almost split into kind of two themselves, aren't they? There feels like there's legacy armies that are a little bit more fleshed out than the others, like the Vampire Counts. There's so many different options in Vampire Counts, and they're all quite strong. Whereas when you look at Lizard Men, they're just quite bad, aren't they? So it feels like more effort has gone into the Vampire Counts already.
Yeah.
Than some of the other armies, the Lizardmen and the Skaven, for example, where actually it wouldn't be, I don't know how much extra effort it would be for Games Workshop to update those, just the ones that are really bad, and just give them a little bit of a boost, change some things, because it's literally just online PDFs, isn't it? So the rules team...
They've done it already to nerf Skaven and Lizardmen, so... Yeah.
Could they go the other way with it? I don't think we could rule that out completely, could we?
I think just for how Games Workshop is as a company, I wouldn't expect them to see it until we see the next launch, and we've had obviously great success. The scope of the project has changed, as they said. So I'm hopeful and semi-expectant to see some, if not all, of the legacy armies brought to the fold for the next edition, and hopefully we see those brought in. And maybe the way that works is we just see them separate from AOS. So instead of having, Lizardmen in AOS and Lizardmen in AOS in Old World, they diverge more. So you've got more classic Lizardmen, and then you've got more AOSified Lizardmen for AOS, and that would be something that would take another edition or two of AOS to really kick off. But
yeah,
cool. So the next question we had is one that I've just closed, so I can bring that back up, and we've got the one that you were talking about. From Callum, have you ever painted a model with the same haircut as yourself?
Don't really have a haircut anymore.
Have you ever painted any?
Going sideways, really. Is the
Yeah. So you know the because you've opened the door, so now I feel comfortable making a light joke about this.
Down.
Yeah, because I normally wouldn't, because it's you shouldn't make comments about people's appearance because that's hurtful, and especially if it's something they can't change about themselves. But you've started it, so you know the battle pilgrims.
Yeah,
you've not quite got it, but if you grew it out, you could go for that like traditional monk hairstyle where you've got the really
real crazy
like
really
just
long.
the full like inverse bowl cut.
I mean, it does. It grows perfectly well sideways. Not a problem at all. It's not the
you
growing.
do just have the Space Marine haircut, like every sergeant. That is what you have. So yes, is the answer.
Draw the line across there, paint black.
I mean, my hair varies between levels of acceptable. I'm a sucker for letting it just get out of hand, to be honest. So yes, but maybe not one that I'd be proud of. I'm sure I've had some level of like stupid poofy mushroom monstrosity and then painted a model that's had the similar level of hair. But probably, but I can't bring it to mind is the answer. Matthew says, half-baked magic items old worlds need that aren't in the game yet. My nomination, Master Rune of Natural Sprinting, gives a dwarf unit swift stride, but still subject to the normal -1 unless in the proximity of a bugman's cart. So the -1 is only for pursuit and fleas. So you wouldn't get that on the charge. I think giving dwarf unit swift stride would be really interesting on like a 3-inch move unit, but then also you get swift stride. That's just a fun little bit of design space that isn't really built on existence chipping in with Friar Tuck. Oh, we're going to need some sort of cosplay from you for Halloween, I think, maybe.
Just get a big brown robe.
It's only fair that I dress up as Maid Marian in that case, though. If we're both going for it, I've got to do something potentially.
I think you look good in a dress, Ed, just saying.
There are pictures when I was more university size.
Hence why I have had to delete my internet history.
This is an unexpectedly horny episode of the podcast. I can only apologize. So I know that I'll have made it in the world when I am featured on Wiki Feet. I don't want to get there, and I'm never going to take my shoes off in public. But if I'm ever on there, I'll be like, damn, I'm a celebrity. Yes, there was a question from Redanus the Bold about measuring from spell familiars, and then it was immediately answered by Ors, our resident head judge of Squarespace.
Again, why are we even here?
To do the funnies, to talk about my feet. These are all of the things that we do.
I think Matthew had a question with his...
no, he didn't. He just had another suggestion, which is Troll Baby, Troll Hag only. If the bearer of the Troll Baby dies, all Troll mobs within the model's command range gain Frenzy. And that can be modeled by getting a Baby Yoda. What's it called? Is it Gronk? What's the... from... God, I'm not a Star Wars guy. So the Mandalorian, there was the little Baby Yoda, whatever people called it.
Tumbleweed, I have no idea. Don't subscribe to Disney, so not a clue.
No. Also another terrible company.
I spent all my money on Army Builder apps, Ed.
Yeah. Grogu, there we go. Thank you. A couple of people in chat. 3 people in chat. Very quick on the draw there. I was like, the name coming to mind was Groot. I was like, I know that's the tree. I can get behind the superhero films because that's
I think the tree was called Treebeard.
That is the wrong IP. But given enough time and Disney will own everything. So, you're wrong, but you're right just 10 years too early. That's the answer there. And that was that for the Old World podcast questions. And so Callum did say that I should ping people in there, and I should have done. I was just busy and didn't notice it until now. So if you are a Longbeard supporter or above, feel free to drop a question in there. We will get to it in the next Old World, Close Order podcast, which will be in 2 weeks' time. And there's going to be something coming out on the Tuesday before Christmas as well, but I don't know what it is. So you'll see it.
Ooh.